We are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Pflugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel, smash the like button, ring the notification bell, share the video with your family and friends if you want to support this college football independent rebel outpost with a donation to help us keep the lights on and grow the channel. Just hit that $ where you make your comment and I will get you super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner, the very corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls. Look, is he asleep, paralyzed, or dead because he's not moving? No sign of life anywhere. Am I being too hard on UNC Chapel Hill? Well, there is a lot of evidence that North Carolina is paralyzed. Absolutely paralyzed. They don't even know where they're going to put the Dean Center. A renovated Dean Center, a new Dean Center, a Dean Center, where is it going to be located? You've got the old guard, you got the new guard, you got a blend of ACC guard, you got some Big Ten alliance sitting there in Chapel Hill, and then you've got this beachhead of SEC interest in Chapel Hill. But at some point, At some point, North Carolina is going to have to wake up. They're going to have to move. They're going to have to do something. Things are not going their way. And they're the belle of the ball. They are the belle of the ball. But it doesn't really seem to matter, does it? Now, I know what some of you are going to say. Greg. Michael Malone is a very good hire for the North Carolina basketball program. His daughter is a North Carolina volleyball player. Michael Malone was invited to practice by Hubert Davis during the season. As you all know, I do watch the NBA. And yeah, okay, Michael Malone, I mean, sure, I guess. But when is the last time that the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, when is the last time the Tar Heels went to their 6th or 7th choice when it comes to who they wanted, who they targeted as their next basketball coach? And not only did they go to the 6th or 7th choice, but they still had Donovan sitting there, the Chicago Bulls head coach, who might have been fired at the end of the season, or he sounds like he was interested. There were other opportunities. But the North Carolina athletic director, Newmark, remember Newmark? I mean, they weren't even certain that any of them would take the job, but they believed that Michael Malone took the job. And he did take the job. Has been out of work for an entire year, almost an entire calendar year. This is not the North Carolina of your father. This is not even the North Carolina of your older brother. This is a North Carolina basketball product. The North Carolina brand value. The North Carolina Tar Heels, for God's sakes. I'm 57 years old. I'm almost 58 years old. It is coming up in 17 days from now. I'm going to be 58 years old in 17 days. And I'm going to tell you something. We grew up North Carolina, the North Carolina Blue, the North Carolina Tar Heels. There was no way, no disrespect to the Iowa Hawkeyes. There was no way a sitting Iowa Hawkeye basketball coach was going to decline the opportunity to become the head coach of North Carolina basketball. No way. And that goes for about 99% of the basketball programs out there, if not 100%. If you take Duke out of the equation, because no Duke, well, whatever. We don't have to go down that path. And yet, here we are. This is a little different than the Penn State situation, in my opinion. When it comes to football. This is a little bit different situation. This is a different situation. I mean, the basketball season just ended. The tournament just ended. I cannot find any logical, traditional reasons that North Carolina did not get who they wanted to get, at least in the top 3 targets. Well, except for the situation that UNC Chapel Hill finds themselves in the ACC. And all of what the ACC did when it comes to their unequal revenue sharing, when it comes to having Florida State and Miami and Clemson playing Notre Dame more often, when it comes to all those metrics, when it comes to TV viewership and all that stuff. It's not really built for North Carolina, is it? North Carolina went and got Belichick. Now it got Malone. And we're not talking about in the athletic department, we're not talking about a university that doesn't have options. They have options. But they know they've got to do something. They know they've got to set forward a path. We talked about, look, I have PATC. We are going to be doing our predictions on April 9th. That is a Thursday. Last year, April 9th, for those who are new to the program, who don't remember our program, last year on April 9th, 2025, I was asked for weeks and weeks and weeks, Greg, make your predictions on what is going to happen in the next wave of realignment. I made my prediction. I also said this has about a 1% chance of being correct because nothing is done, nothing is settled, nothing is even close to imminent. There's a lot of variables out there. There's going to be variables that are thrown in the mix that we don't even know exist right now. And of course, all that happened. And my prediction at the time, last April 9th, 2025, that it was going to be North Carolina, Virginia, Clemson, and Florida State to the SEC, Notre Dame fighting Irish, and Miami to the Big Ten. And I said, I made it perfectly clear. I've said it 500 times in the last 362 days. That has about this prediction, not a report. This prediction has a 1% chance of being correct. But what we have reported here at Peek Around the Corner, what we have reported, and I'm willing to go out on a limb based upon the information that we have received at Peek Around the Corner. And I know people are sitting on this. I know we are going to be, I guess there's a chance we're going to be taking an L here at PATC come next June 2nd of 2027. But I have reported that we are confident, as much as confident as we can possibly be. We believe that North Carolina is going to make it known. The University of North Carolina is going to make it known where their future is going to be before June 1st, 2027. Now, that hasn't been reported anywhere in public. We have made that report at Peek Around the Corner. We've done that. We believe the SEC's the chalk, but everything is wide open in North Carolina because they are the belle of the ball. The Big Ten wants them. There are people inside North Carolina that wants to reimagine the ACC. The SEC wants them. We believe the SEC destination is the chalk. But we cannot report to you that North Carolina is going to the SEC, although I will give you a little bit of a hint and a wink that that's going to be part of our prediction on April 9th, a prediction, not a report. But we have reported that North Carolina is going to make their destination known on or before June 1st, 2027. And I know a lot of you are saying, Greg, you should not be saying that because it is still way too unknown. It's too early. North Carolina's going to want to wait. They're going to want to wait. They pay less money to get out of the ACC. They should wait until make that announcement in 28, make that announcement in 29, make that announcement in 30. But I don't think so. I cannot promise you that they even know which direction they're going right now, but I believe it's going to end up being the Southeastern Conference. Again, that's a prediction, not a report. But I am reporting, I think we believe they're going to make it known to themselves internally and outward what the hell they're going to do because it's killing them. It's killing North Carolina that nobody knows what's going to happen. Is some of this self-inflicted wounds? Yes. But some of this is unavoidable. You've got UNC is not aligned in any fashion, form. They are not aligned internally. The factions have been going at it for years, even before Kevin Gusowich was forced out. The advantage is the Southeastern Conference, we believe. But they know they've got to make a decision. It's killing them. And it's not just about realignment. It's about the Dean Center. It's about everything. It's about everything. When you've got head coaches of other programs that don't want to touch the North Carolina, they don't want to go on that island right now, even though there's all those advantages that they have, but there are big disadvantages. Nobody's going to know. Nobody knows where North Carolina. Look, you've got agents. Allegedly. You've got agents telling these head coaches, yeah, North Carolina's a sweet job. It's going to be a sweet job in the future, but look, we don't look. Just to let you know, there are people at North Carolina, they still think that the ACC thing can work, and they think they want it more than going to the SEC and going to the Big Ten, and North Carolina ain't going to make the money as the SEC program. North Carolina ain't going to make them. They got to do so much more to make the same money as we at the University of Iowa and Iowa City, and on and on and on, all these candidates. The candidates are sitting in the SEC. You're looking at the ACC basketball performance. It just doesn't measure up anymore. Maybe that would change. Maybe that would change. Maybe that would change. Maybe. But where North Carolina is right now, it's a gamble. Because at Chapel Hill, the expectations are not being lowered. The fan base, the expectation from the boosters, the expectations from internal at the university, those expectations are not really being lowered, but the ability to compete at the national level is being lowered. Because you're asking more and more and more from your university to help fund the basketball program, especially when they're doing all that they can for the football program. You're asking more and more and more from the boosters, and the boosters are split. They're not aligned. We know that 100% fact. We know that the boosters of North Carolina are not completely aligned on where they're going to go next. What they're going to do next. Paralyzed? Are they sleeping, or is it completely dead at Chapel Hill? We don't think it's dead. And we don't think we do not believe they're sleeping. But they are paralyzed. So we are going to go into that, the North Carolina situation. Yes, it's a basketball story. Yes, Michael Malone might end up being a very good college basketball coach. But look, the chatter behind the curtain, the chatter in the chat rooms, North Carolina had a gamble once again. They had a gamble because they do not have the pair of aces. They don't have the cards that they used to. Can you imagine if North Carolina was getting that extra $35 million, $40 million in media money, that extra exposure, that extra platform of the SEC? Do you imagine if North Carolina was making $35, $40 million more in the Big Ten, that extra exposure, that extra platform in the Big Ten? They're trying to make up this deficit and haul all this money and investment in the football program. That hasn't paid off yet. And now the basketball program is leaking like a sieve. And today, the last couple of days, I don't know how much more evidence you need. I really do not know how much more evidence you need. But it's not only North Carolina, Chapel Hill that is not aligned. We've talked about the fracture in the Big Ten. It exists. It exists. Remember, they're working on the UC investment deal, Big Ten Enterprises. Michigan, USC said, nah, we don't want it. We don't want anything to do with it. Fracture in the Big Ten. The Big 12, what happened to that deal? What happened to the Ocho Capital deal? What happened to that? And you got Big 12, you got some infighting going on. You got Cody Campbell versus Brett Yormark. You got the ACC. Come on. Do I even have to say it? No, I don't. Of course, the ACC, of course, the Atlantic Coast Conference is not fully aligned. But the SEC was, or maybe they're not. Or maybe they're not. Brett McMurphy put out an article today. We're going to go through it. An interesting article. A lot of it, what we went through before, about the SEC not being that dominant conference anymore. Some of it is easy to explain. But it was the last few words of the Brett McMurphy article, the great Brett McMurphy article, that sent alarm bells. And I made a few phone calls. Yeah, maybe, just maybe, Greg Sankey has lost grip with inside the SEC. Maybe he has lost grip. Maybe. Especially at this time, a very sensitive time in college sports, with the SCORE Act, with the spring meetings going to be popping up in May in Destin, Florida. Greg Sankey might not have that complete allegiance to him from inside people in the SEC. So we are going to go over that today. We've got a lot to go over. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Let's start it off with the super chat. Ryan Willie, then we're going to do the roll call, and then we're going to get into our program. Ryan Willie, $5 holla. $5 holla. Ryan Willie, no Wisconsin head coach would ever take the Minnesota head coaching job. Burt betrayed Wisconsin when he went to Illinois. Well, Bielema first went to Arkansas. And then he got fired from Arkansas and then went to Illinois. If Bielema was at Wisconsin right now, and Wisconsin was having the success that they were having when Brett Bielema was there, he would not take that Arkansas job, because things have completely flipped in the Big Ten versus the SEC, which is kind of interesting to think about, in my opinion. Thank you for the $5 holler, Eva Badger. We wouldn't want any Wisconsin head coach. Minnesota would not accept a head coach from the Wisconsin Badgers that had head coach of Wisconsin in their resume. We would reject that out of hand. We would reject that completely out of hand. No Badger in Gopher land. But thank you, Ryan Willie. Thank you for the $5 holler. I appreciate it. We got Ricky Tungate. Thank you for starting us off, Evil Badger. I appreciate it. We got Ricky Tungate sent the gift in membership. Holy smokes. The Indiana Hoosier. The Indiana Hoosier JM Motivation is the new family member. JM Motivation. And, of course, Ricky Tungate. Both of you are knighted officially. Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger. Welcome to the family, Mr. Motivation. That means you're going to go to our episodes, watch all the episodes, including our early peak Cloak and Dagger member-only episodes. And Motivation, when you get an opportunity, please say thank you to Ricky Tungate for his generosity. Thank you, Mr. Hoosier. I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so very much, Ricky. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Let's do the roll call here. The architect is in the house. Hello, PATC. Doug Steinhauser is in. Doc Boots is in. Jay Chapman. Old Dodd. Amy S79. Thanks for coming on in, Amy. AFKA Donovan. GM and others fired with the situation. Jan Uzi, MBM. How much BB? How much was Tom Brady? Tough Tony's in the house. Daniel Gorby is here. This hire, coupled with the Belichick hire, makes you wonder. Adam, good afternoon, PATC. Go Gators. Go Gators. Thanks for coming on in, Adam. I appreciate it. Tom DeBay. The Blue Bloods are being replaced by the New Bloods. Preston from Greensboro, North Carolina. North Carolina. 31st NBA team. Or is North Carolina the NBA's 33rd team at the expansion that's coming in Seattle and Las Vegas? I am very confused at what North Carolina is doing. Preston from Greensboro. We'll get into it. Kayla Ramirez is in the house. Go Black 45, Army of 48 breakaway. MBM, no one cares about North Carolina football. Roddy Richboard, go Tigers. LSU Tiger is in the house. Who else is in? Nick Kelso. John Boxleitner. I like the UNC hire. Some people do, John. Some people do. I don't know. I don't know if it's a good hire or not, but I do. It's been reported everywhere, including the North Carolina websites, everywhere. National, locally, everywhere. This is about the 6th or 7th choice for North Carolina. And that is what I'm focusing on, because when is the last time North Carolina had to go down to the 6th or 7th choice to hire their basketball head coach? When's the last time that needed to happen? Probably never. I'm guessing. Don Scruggs, I live in North Carolina. All these people fear the change. The SEC intimidates them. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. Don Scruggs, Georgia Bulldogs. Oh my God. Old Dad is in the house. Steven Vitt, the Ohio Bobcat, is here. Jose, fight on. USC, fight on, is in the house. Let's fix this. This stream always makes me want to spend some time in Minnesota. Come on up or come on down if you're from Canada. But come on up to Minnesota. 90% of it is outstanding here in Minnesota. Beautiful waters. Now it's cold. And we've had a very cold April. I'm not liking it. I am not liking it at all. The Edward, the Auburn Tiger is in the house. Yes, he was at Wisconsin before Arkansas. Absolutely true. Rod Nix is here. Jerry Astenzia is here. Thank you for coming on in. The Almighty is in the house. Hope you're doing well, Almighty. I hope you're doing well. Briggs of Disaster. See you soon. Notre Dame. Frank Potter is in the house. Go Hokies. OBD Dunn is in the house. Dogs and Dubs. Malone may work out or he may not. All right, so let's get to it. We've got a super chat from the incredible, generous Mr. Cowboy who's getting all fired up. He doesn't want people to get too excited. Super chat, $10 holla. The Oklahoma State Cowboy, MBM. Oh, I did not think of that phrase. MBM. UNC has stage fright in the PATC Theater. Quick, turn off the lights. There they are, center of the stage. Notre Dame is creeping on them. The belle of the ball, the Tar Heels. I was asking if the nurse was asking. Paralyzed, dead, asleep? No. MBM says stage fright. Doesn't want to be at the center of the stage. Wants other people to make the decision for them. Could that be it? Could that be what's going on? You know, Colorado was at the center of the stage. They had a history with the Big 12. They had some motivation. They had Deion Sanders wanted to get back into Texas. They had, while Colorado got a lot of their students from California, there was still this cultural mix mash with the Pac-12 schools, and Colorado was at the center of the stage for months. And there was a lot of cloak and dagger going on. And then they made their move. Is North Carolina, I'm thinking they're paralyzed, right? The Board of Governors, all these different factions. But I think what MBM is saying here, maybe the leadership doesn't want to make that decision. They don't want to be held accountable. They're hoping somebody else does it. They're hoping Notre Dame pulls the trigger. Because if somebody else pulls the trigger, the dominoes are probably going to fall pretty logically after that, depending on who pulls the trigger first. MBM is either on something or onto something. Thank you for the $10 holler, Mr. Cowboy. Very much. I appreciate it very much, sir. I appreciate your kindness, sir. Thank you so very much. Once again, MBM comes up big. Bob Swanger is in the house. Kenneth Maynard, North Carolina works at their own timetable. Fair enough. But man, they're losing a little bit of they're the belle of the ball, but their outfit is starting to look a little bit outdated. The way they dance, the way they present themselves. It's Belichick and Malone. maybe, look, we'll leave it till later in the monologue. We'll leave it later for the monologue. Buckeye Greg is in the house. Buckeye Greg is here. Kay Nguyen is here. Thanks for coming on in, Kay. Rod Nix. Rich Austin. Greg the Goal Youths. Rich Austin. Misty Youths is in the house. Mountaineer Memes. Mountaineer Memes is here. I can tell that the old Big Eight still matters to these teams. Mizzou's biggest juice game over the last 10 years was against the Wildcats, and the Cornhuskers still care more about Colorado than Iowa. I don't know about that last one. But Nebraska still cares about Colorado. I would agree with that. But Nebraska cares about Iowa. They just can't beat Iowa. Neither can the Gophers. So, who else is here? Malone is an outstanding basketball mind. Okay. Look, I don't want to sit here and rip on Michael Malone. I watch NBA. I think he's they're all a little nutty, but okay, great basketball mind. Great basketball mind. But this great basketball mind wasn't the first choice for North Carolina. Wasn't the second choice for North Carolina. Wasn't the third, fourth, or fifth choice for North Carolina. When has North Carolina ever had to go to the sixth or seventh choice? And I do believe it tells a story. I do believe this event tells a story that is bigger than basketball. I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be cruel. But this is college football, peek around the corner. And the ACC, I love you. Look, there's a lot of people in the PATC family are ACC fans, and there's slippage in the conference. There is. In basketball and football, the revenue sports, there's slippage in the conference. There is great instability in the conference. There's a lot of positioning going on in the conference. Everyone has believed that the top branded schools in the ACC are going to be leaving. Now, some of this has propelled some programs into investing all that they got because they don't want to be left behind. One of those programs is Miami, but they're fully aligned. But Miami, look what Miami doing in football. Look at the money they're investing in football. But then again, they've got great motivation. They're going to be helped by that new revenue metrics that they're doing, that unequal revenue sharing, much more than North Carolina is going to benefit from it. And there is a part of North Carolina that wants out. And I think I really believed it's the majority. But it's not a huge majority. But we believe it's the majority. North Carolina does, look, we were going to wait. Let me just say this. We'll get back to it later in the program. Okay? We're going to get back later. We're going to circle back. We're going to talk about North Carolina, back half the monologue. But let me just say this. And then we'll get to the very generous Go Black 45. Thank you, Go Black 45. But Go Black 45, be patient with me. I got to get this out or else I'm going to forget it. North Carolina has known, they have known for a long time about the potential upcoming slippage in the ACC. They've known this. They know this. Remember when it was announced on June 30th, 2022, that UCLA and USC were going to join the Big Ten. Brian Murphy of WRAL did a FOIA request on the communications of Bubba Cunningham and at that time, Kevin Gusowich. The communications between Kevin Gusowich and Bubba Cunningham, and the communication between Bubba Cunningham and his longtime good friend, former Big Ten commissioner of 20-some years, Jim Delaney. And those FOIA requests, the communication showed perfectly that North Carolina knew the position that they were in. This incredible university, an incredible academic university, a really good brand basketball university, a major university, the flagship university in what is going to be the 7th most populated state in the United States in the year 2030. And the demographics favor North Carolina. North Carolina is the belle of the ball, virgin country for SEC in the Big Ten. They knew the position that they were in. On June 30th, 2022, after the news came out that the Big Ten expanding, Gusowich and Bubba Cunningham talked about the possibilities of a reimagined ACC in which they contracted the conference. They would make it smaller. They talked about multiple options. That was one of them. Can you believe that? Long time North Carolina, the beachhead of ACC, talking about the possibility, if they could possibly do it legally and culturally and politically, to contract the conference, to get more value for the conference, to get more value for North Carolina. They talked about the options. How do we get out of the gore? And then the Magnificent Seven happened. And we were told and we reported to you that Magnificent Seven started with North Carolina and Virginia. That was the first subgroup discussion, and then it grew for the 7 schools. North Carolina has been particularly aware of the ACC slippage. North Carolina did not vote to sue Clemson. North Carolina did not vote to sue Florida State. And this slippage, the fear of the ACC slippage, eventually creeps in to the hiring of coaches, to the hiring of staffs. It creeps into everything. And it's going on at North Carolina. And it just so happens that the University of North Carolina is not fully aligned. Duke is, Miami is, Clemson is. Florida State, they know who's calling the shots at Florida State. North Carolina is not. And they just happen to be the school that is at the center of the stage in the Holy Smokes Theater. But they do understand the slippage. And I think this today was another big indication of the slippage, even if Michael Malone becomes a successful college basketball head coach. We've got Go Black 45 Super Chat. Go Black 45, $5 holla. Still think UNC joins the SEC, especially if they and North Carolina State get that extra gambling money, which again hasn't happened yet. Not in the way that people expected at Chapel Hill, because North Carolina politicians are not fully aligned. With the increase in the Big 12 money, could increase the skids for UNC. Thank you for the $5 holla. Go Black 45. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you so very much. The The North Carolina State piece is interesting. Again, is it going to be part of my April 9th prediction show? I don't know. We're going to find out. We're going to find out together. Who knows? Maybe I haven't made my final decision yet on my prediction. Thank you for the $5 holler. Appreciate it, Go Black 45. Appreciate it so very much. Florida Man is in the house. Rod Nix is here. Interview doesn't mean he was the choice. We'll get more into the story. We'll get more into the story. I promise. I promise. I don't think McCollum or Biting. They were not. Well, we'll get more into that, Preston. Good questions. Good questions. Thank you, Go Black 45. Appreciate it. All right. First of all, I do want to get into the SEC alignment issue. All right. Brett McMurphy, the great Brett McMurphy on 3. Again, you guys know how it works. At the end of the monologue, we open up the phone lines. When you talk, when you give us a call at 763-260-1333, the floor is completely yours. You can talk about anything in college football that your heart desires. Super chats. Again, you can talk about anything, and we're going to talk about it because you were kind enough to put it in a super chat. All other comments, I will pick and choose depending on if they're sticking with the subject or if they're mighty interesting. Let's get on with it. Brett McMurphy on 3. The mighty SEC has literally fallen and can't get up. With South Carolina's loss to UCLA in Sunday's Women's Final Four title game, this marks the first time in 9 years an SEC team did not win a national championship in either football or men's or women's basketball. First time in 9 years. These things are cyclical. But this recent cycle, no matter how you spin it, has not been great, especially in the sport that really, really, really does just mean more to the SEC. A few months ago, the Southeastern Conference experienced a brutal bowl season before inserting your who cares about meaningless bowl games unless you win hot take. The SEC's 2-8 bowl record, excluding 2 SEC versus SEC playoff games, was not only the worst in league history, but the Southeastern Conference was favored to win 7 of those 10 games. What's troubling is the SEC's lack of success in the playoffs, having gone 3 years without a national championship. For most leagues, a 3-year national title drought is no cause for concern, but not the SEC. Brett McMurphy on 3. From 6 to 22, SEC teams won 13 national titles in 17 years. That's never going to be duplicated. Not by the Big Ten, not by anybody. Complete dominance by the Southeastern Conference. Then, well, something funny happened. The start of NIL payments, now it's legal NIL, has coincided with the end of the SEC's dominance and the Big Ten's rise with 3 consecutive national titles by Michigan, Ohio State, and Indiana. Former LSU coach Ed Orgeron on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast in December said the biggest difference in the SEC was the creation of the NIL. Back then, we used to walk through the back door with the cash. Now we just got to walk through the front door with the cash. Besides the start of the NIL in 21, Saban, who won 6 national titles at Alabama, retired in 2022, with NIL leveling up the playing field. Perhaps the success of the greatest college coach of all time also may have contributed to the league's recent dip. As Saban dominated the league, the other SEC schools were trying to keep up with the tide to the point where they were firing coaches at a record clip if and when they couldn't match Bama's success. The majority of the other SEC coaches don't have the patience to build a program, and maybe some coaches weren't afforded the luxury of an additional season because of the added pressure of trying to match Bama. In Saban's 17 years at Alabama, there were 54 different head coaches hired in the SEC, not including interim coaches. 54! Arkansas and Tennessee alone combined for 12 coaches. At the top of the list was Florida's Dan Mullen, who had 3 consecutive seasons finishing in the top 10 of the final CFP rankings, yet was fired before the end of his 4th season. That's crazy. The Gators, who are nearing the 20 years since their last national title, are just one example of the impatience of the SEC schools. Unfortunately for the league, Saban is not walking through that door again. Not only hasn't the SEC won a football title in the past 3 seasons, but it hasn't had a team reach the title game. And it doesn't look that promising this fall. The Southeastern Conference increased its league schedule from 8 to 9 games starting this year. Basic math says that's an additional loss for 8 SEC teams. That's true. Still not convinced? Brett McMurphy on 3. The season win totals for the next season were recently released by BetMGM. Only 2 SEC schools, Georgia and Texas, each projected at 9.5 wins, were listed at more than 9 wins. By comparison, the Big Ten has 4 teams: Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, projected at 9.5 wins or higher. Now, teams can obviously outperform expectations, but if the SEC ends up with only 2 teams with at least 9 wins, there will be only 2 SEC teams in the playoffs. Holy smokes. There has never been an 8-4 team in the college football playoff, and there won't be this season, according to Brett McMurphy. While its recent playoff struggles are well documented off the field, the SEC has slowly become very un-SEC-like. In 1992, the SEC created the conference title game. Now the SEC's baby is all grown up, 34 years old, and worth between $50 to $70 million annually to the conference. It's all grown up. However, several SEC coaches and athletic directors, including Georgia's Kirby Smart, Bama's Kalen DeBoer, Greg Byrne, Tennessee Josh Heupel, LSU Lane Kiffin, Texas Chris Del Conte, have suggested eliminating the SEC title game. Georgia and Alabama have won 11 of the last 12 SEC titles. And they're saying it's time to move along. Georgia and Alabama have won 11 of the 12, and they're both saying, their leadership of both Georgia and Alabama are saying, it's time to eliminate the conference title game. And finally, in the article, the part that we're going to cover here at Peek Around the Corner, also some SEC coaches have expressed a desire for the college football playoff to expand beyond 16 teams. Prominent SEC personnel are going out the reservation and not towing the company line. That's not exactly what the SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey wants. In the most uncertain period of college athletics, no recent national titles, and PATC money shot of the article, in waning allegiance. No recent titles and waning allegiance. Waning allegiance to who? to Greg Sankey. A remarkable last two words in Brett McMurphy's article. Now, remember yesterday's live show? PATC legendary caller Rick called up, and he noticed that where's the allegiance of the national reporters to Greg Sankey lately? They've been taking shots that they don't normally take. Rick reminded all of us that, look, there's even national reporters that are kind of warming up to the college football playoffs of 24. Kind of, sort of. They're not calling it absurd anymore. They're not calling it pathetic anymore. Remember, Josh Pate said it was pathetic. Reese Davis said it's absurd. Reese Davis was so upset with Tony Petitti. Not anymore. Not anymore. You know what's interesting is coming out of last year, before we went into the SEC spring meetings, when we had those advisory groups between the SEC and the Big Ten, there was consensus with the 4-4-2-2-1-3 playoff format. The Big Ten thought they had a deal. 13 of the 16 athletic directors, reported by Ross Gellinger, agreed with the Big Ten, was willing to make this deal with the Big Ten. They went down to the southeastern, they went down to the SEC spring meetings, and the coaches erupted. And Greg Sankey had to politely back away, said we don't have a deal, Big Ten, and the advisory group stopped, and we had this. Eventually, everybody went to DEFCON 1. Now, Greg Sankey's trying to hold the line in the college football playoffs, going to at least 16 first before we jump to 24. But now the big-time coaches, Kirby Smart, it don't get no bigger than that, saying he kind of favors the 2014 playoff. Josh Heupel and more are going to be saying it. More of them are going to be saying it because I think they understand the value. More teams being in contention later on the season help ticket sales, help viewership numbers, help merchandise, help the beer sales, help the community, help the local bars. You're going to have more teams hosting a first-round home game, seeded 9 through 16, and then you're going to have 8 more teams, seed 1 through 8, have a home game in the second round, first round bye, second round home game, and a lot of those teams are going to be Southeastern Conference teams. They're going to make more money as a conference, more money per institution, going to a 2014 playoff than they would if they kept the Southeastern Conference Championship game. You eliminate the conference championship games, you move up the season to week 0, you can make a 24-team playoff work. So Greg Sankey, is he? I mean, the great Greg Sankey, is he starting to lose that allegiance that he received from the presidents? From the coaches? From the reporters? I think so. And I think I think there's a reason why Brett McMurphy put it at the very end of the article. Something that I never thought I would see, honestly. I mean, you guys watch me, I went absolutely ballistic. Show after show after show. Why? Look, I have dragged Tony Petitti over the coals when I thought, but Tony Petitti was the only one being dragged over the coals. They would not touch Greg Sankey. Even though the SEC talked about playoffs, of larger than 24 teams. They could not touch Greg Sankey. They would not touch Greg Sankey. And now there's not a week that goes by that, look at Matt Hayes, for God's sakes, USA Today. Matt Hayes has the strongest arms of all the reporters because he's constantly carrying the water for the Southeastern Conference. Not so much anymore. He's not carrying the water for Greg Sankey, not anymore. Now, and of course, there's an issue even bigger than the college football playoffs. There's an issue sitting out there that's even bigger than going from 8 conference games to 9. There is the breakaway from the NCAA issue. And this is why I wanted to talk about it today. This is why this Brett McMurphy article, ending with no recent national titles and a waning allegiance. A waning allegiance, not from each other. The SEC is solid on solid ground. Of course they are. No, I'll say it again. There's never been, as far as I'm concerned, I've never received any credible information ever, that any SEC team was willing to leave the pack. Not Vanderbilt, not Texas A&M. That did not come from me. I would not say that because I don't believe it. I've never received any information that said that. Not a waning allegiance from each other, but a possible waning allegiance from Greg Sankey. Now we head on into the breakaway. Greg Sankey, okay, we just talked about the playoffs. We're talking about these other issues. Important, but not as important as this one. Greg Sankey has made it publicly known, privately known, that he ain't so much for the breakaway. He does not want it to happen. He's frustrated. He's frustrated that the SCORE Act is not passing, but he has said there are people in the SEC that are way out ahead on this. I'm not going to lie to you. That's what Greg Sankey said. But on the other hand, he doesn't want it to happen. Well, there are people that are very strong people in the SEC that wants it to happen, and they want it to happen right now. And I'm not sure that Greg Sankey has the pull that he used to have, the ability to get consensus. The political IOUs, I think, are all used up. So there's a big issue coming in May. Yeah, the college football playoffs, but that's going to be a back seat to do we break away or not? And if we do break away from the NCAA, how extreme will it be for the Southeastern Conference? And I got a feeling that the SEC, most of the presidents are in a different spot on the spectrum than the commissioner, Greg Sankey. So, there's a fracture in the Big Ten. We've talked about it. Big 12, there is. And the ACC, of course there is. And now the SEC, that alliance to Greg Sankey, not as tight as it was. Put down your comments in the comments section below the video. Give us a call later in the program. Let me know what you're thinking. And now we're going to get back onto the North Carolina story. We've got a $5 holiday super chat from Stevens. Stevens, ESPN control rights, if it stays at 16 or less, is why the SEC and ESPN is against it. Trying to keep Fox and CBS and others from getting playoff games. I believe it's 14 or less. And the reason I say that is I believe in the reports. You can go ahead and Google this, Stevens, and anybody else in the chat, anybody that's watching this program. If the playoffs expanded, ESPN would have the ability to keep control of 2 more playoff games. 2 more. From 11 to 13. But not 11 to 15. So I don't think that's the question. If they go to 15, if they go to 16 teams, there has to be at least 2 playoff games that go up for bid. I'm pretty sure that is accurate. Go ahead and Google it. Let me know in the chat room. But your greater point is accurate. An expansion right now from 12 to 24 teams may not be in the best interest for ESPN because you're given the ability of other potential media partners to get into that space, to get into that game. And I'm not necessarily I am talking about Fox, I am talking about CBS, like Stevens is saying, but let's be honest. If Amazon grabs some of those college football playoff games, if Netflix does, then, that might not be in ESPN's interest. That happened so early on, especially when ESPN does have total control of a 12-team playoff or a 14-team playoff. Thank you for the $5 holler. I appreciate it, Steven, so very much. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you so very much. Let me make sure I got everybody here. Okay. North Carolina. Let's get into it. Matt Norlander. UNC is indeed set to hire former Denver Nuggets coach Mike Malone. Source confirmed to CBS Sports Pete Thamel was the first to the news. I'm told Iowa's Ben McCollum turned down a chance to interview. And the school pivoted to Malone. Things moved fast in the past 18 hours. More on McCollum. He had contact with UNC last week as the search played out, per sources. UNC was hoping to meet him in person Sunday for a proper interview, but he passed on that invitation to stay at Iowa. So he didn't even really have that interview, but he was targeted. He was absolutely targeted. And UNC could not even get in the door to interview him. Malone's candidacy picked up speed as others removed their name. According to reports, North Carolina, they did not get their first, second, third, fourth, fifth option. More from Matt Norlander. More per sources. Baylor's Scott Drew also engaged with North Carolina in recent days as the search progressed, but ultimately did not choose to walk down too far down that path. UNC did its diligence on a lot of notable college coaches. Malone was there for the taking. In other words, Malone was willing to take the job. And again, it might turn out to be a great head coach. Might turn out to be a very good head coach for North Carolina. But it was not the first choice, not the second choice, not the third choice, not the fourth choice. Slippage in the ACC in all of basketball. Don't take my word for it. Are we being unfair to the ACC? Are we being unfair? Are we being unfair to the ACC? The Atlantic Coast Conference, the conference that has been rightly criticized for focusing too much on basketball over the last 30 years. ACC is basketball country, and they have slide behind the SEC, behind the Big Ten, and behind the Big 12. Attendance has slipped. And of course, you're sitting there in the ACC, and you're not going to have a new media rights negotiations until 2036. The Big 12 is going to have their new media rights negotiations in 2030 for 2031. The Big 10 a year earlier than that, and the SEC they're going to be able to negotiate early, as being reported. You've got all this instability in the ACC when it comes to, they've all got an exit hatch. It's all been, the Florida State and Clemson won a major, massive battle in the courts. The ACC would have to accept the check written to the ACC after the notice of withdrawal if Florida State, Clemson, North Carolina, whoever gets a landing spot in the P2, which I think is going to happen. North Carolina, do they really, and again, we talked about it early in the program, North Carolina has been acutely aware of the ACC slippage. They talked about it on June 30th of 2022. We talked about the communications between Bubba Cunningham and then Chancellor Kevin Gusewich. But Brian Murphy of WRAL also did a FOIA request on the communications between Bubba Cunningham and Jim Delaney. And Jim Delaney advised Bubba Cunningham, be a little patient, be a little patient, be a little patient. It's all going to come back, I'm paraphrasing, it's all going to come back around to Chapel Hill. North Carolina's going to have an opportunity. Be patient. In other words, I believe that Jim Delaney was telling Bubba Cunningham, advising against any of this ACC contraction, because North Carolina would have a landing spot in the Big Ten or the SEC. We reported to you on June 15th of 2024 that North Carolina was the number one target for the Southeastern Conference and the Big Ten if you took out the option of Notre Dame. So North Carolina knows they are wanted. They know they're the belle of the ball. And they know they're slipping. They're slipping. They're slipping behind the opportunity, the money of the SEC and the Big Ten, and the laser focus of Brett Yormark and the Big 12, and the cultural Big 12, the picking up of the basketball culture in the Big 12. I mean, the ACC is slipping, and it's hurting North Carolina the most. It's hurting North Carolina more than the big old, than the private institution of Duke. It is hurting North Carolina more than North Carolina State, more than Wake Forest, more because they have longer to fall, because North Carolina was at the precipice of elite basketball, branding value in basketball. And it's slipping. And the new revenue structure that the ACC built, the new unequal revenue share built, that doesn't favor North Carolina. Nah. North Carolina's not getting more football games with Notre Dame. They're getting less football games with Notre Dame. Clemson, Miami, and Florida State are getting more football games with Notre Dame. So it is time for North Carolina to get a move on. But are they paralyzed? Do they have stage fright like MBM suggested? Are they asleep or are they completely dead? Now, I don't think Chapel Hill is dead. And I don't even think they're asleep. They were wide awake on June 30th, 2022. I do think they're paralyzed. I think they're absolutely wrapped up in the different factions, more than two, at least three. They do not have the political space to make a move. They have to deal with the Board of Governors, which means that North Carolina State's situation has to be dealt with. And the weaker that North Carolina is, the more slippage that North Carolina has, politically, maybe the more strength that North Carolina State receives. I don't know. And then you've got the thing with Virginia. Much, much, much more difficult for the Southeastern Conference to get Virginia. Not impossible, but come on, it's way more difficult. And that might hurt North Carolina politically, internally, to make that jump to the SEC. Because Virginia was going to give North Carolina political coverage. North Carolina was going to give Virginia political coverage. They were tied at the hip. But my goodness, things have changed. Boots on the ground at Virginia. You've got Newmark. Now, there's reports out there that the new athletic director, Newmark, might have panicked in this move. That he got the guy that he knew he could get, instead of waiting for a Billy Donovan, head coach of the Chicago Bulls, or a few others that are being suggested in this late hour. But he could not wait any longer. Newmark, the new athletic director, could not wait any longer. Why couldn't he wait any longer? Why couldn't Newmark wait any longer? Because the perception of slippage was gaining more and more traction. It was the story. North Carolina can't get any of their top coaches. So they got Malone, and now, he's a great coach, great basketball mind. He was always one of our top targets, whatever. But Newmark, he had to strike. Can't let any more slippage. You got to show strength. You've got players. You got really good basketball players in North Carolina that have already said publicly, we're gonna go in the portal. Now, we might come back if the choice is correct, and now North Carolina, Mike Malone, a great coach. We're going to get it done. They're playing the perception war right now because they were losing badly. And again, I'm not trying to be this is college football, peek around the corner. Overall, there has been slippage in the ACC. Overall, Miami's just fine. They're going to be a beast this year. They were an incredible football team last year. They're going to be a beast this year. Everything is thumbs up for the Hurricanes. Duke has had a fantastic calendar year. ACC championship in football, basketball, men's and women's. Outstanding. Duke, outstanding. There's other good stories in the ACC. But overall, slippage in football. Clemson, slipping. North Carolina, still not getting that Bill Belichick traction yet. Florida State, of course they have slipped, but they have slipped big time. And I don't think they're going to be any better this year, but we'll find out. In North Carolina, if they ever got their ducks in a row, if they ever got aligned, they have options. They definitely have options, but they got to get their stuff in line, and they've got to deal with the Board of Governors. They've got to deal with this politically, culturally, economically. Because North Carolina UNC has slipped. All right, let's get to your phone calls here. The Evil Badger. $5 holla. Evil Badger, I received some good news today. Hoping to bust out of here by the end of the week. I don't want to wait until next week. I don't want to wait until next week. Thank you, Ryan Willie, for that update. Thank you for taking on the battle. Thank you, Ryan Willie, for not giving up. Thank you for updating us. And thank you, Ryan Willie, for being a member of this family. Thank you, very kind, sir. Thank you. And we're going to continue to pray for you, Ryan Willie. The comeback is real. The Ryan Willie comeback is real. And maybe, just maybe, the Wisconsin Badger comeback is real. But I don't want to give that too much airtime right now. Not here, not now, not in April 6th. But thank you, Ryan Willie. Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Free Ryan Willie. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Good luck on the jailbreak. Okay. All right. Let me check here if I haven't totally screwed up. All right. Phone lines are open. Again, you know how it works. Phone lines, the floor is yours. You can talk about anything in college football that your heart desires. You do not have to talk about what we talked about during this live program, about North Carolina being paralyzed, slipping. You don't have to talk about Brett McMurphy talking about the SEC. There may be some allegiance issues with Greg Sankey.
Call from
Tristan 5.
Tristan 5, the floor is yours. Thanks for calling.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Greg.
You got it, buddy.
Listen, I feel like I've got a million things to say, so I'm going to try and fly through these pretty quick. So when you were talking about SEC coaches now are starting to support the larger playoff format, I think it was 24.
Some of them have spoken in public. Yep.
Okay. The story there is that they know with the increased losses that's going to occur with the larger conference schedule, they're going to need those extra spots to get into the playoff. I think that's the real motive. If you boil it down, that's what they're really thinking about. Now, the SEC championship game, Greg, if they go to a larger format and there's a number of AQs that I think the Big Ten and the SEC would get, probably what you're going to see is that they're going to have a play-in weekend where they have their AQs. I don't know what the number would be, but let's just say for the sake of argument that it's 4. You're going to see the SEC hold a little weekend of playoff football, basically, where they say these 4 games are going to be played and the winners get their AQs, and they're going into the playoff automatically. And I think the Big Ten will do the same thing. And so the conference championship game could theoretically be folded into that. And the way you would do it is you would say one's going to play 2, and we're going to make that the champion of the SEC or the Big Ten if they were doing the same thing. And then we've got these other games that play, and we're going to say, 3 is going to play 6, and 4 is going to play 5, and those winners automatically get in as well. And I think they could find a way to squeeze both of those things into the same weekend. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. Wasn't that Tony Petitti's vision to begin with?
It probably did originate with him.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that they were going to do like a 1 versus, what would the numbers end up being? It would be like 1 versus 8 and then 2 versus 7 kind of a thing. But that's no good. You want to maintain that 1 versus 2 for the championship.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that might have been Petitti who had that idea. It didn't come up from me, but when I heard it, I realized that was a better idea. So, yeah, I don't think that the championship game is going to go away. They're going to fold it into that other concept, the play-ins for the AQs. That's my opinion there. And then, Greg, Notre Dame, I gotta say this. I wanted to call in, and when you were talking about Notre Dame a couple of shows ago, look, they are not independent if they can't afford for the Big Ten and the SEC to go into silos.
Well, they're quasi independent right now, right?
Yeah, you can say that they're quasi independent. I get that, but if they have to have these other conferences, availing themselves to them for them to stay independent, then they're not really independent. That's the definition, Greg, of being dependent.
Yeah.
They're depending on the SEC and they're depending on the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So I think that their days of independence are winding down. That's just an opinion. And I have a new theory. It's a conspiracy theory pertaining to the silos, Greg. I want to run it by you and get your feedback. Okay.
Yes.
So if the SEC goes into a silo, is it unreasonable to think that the Big Ten would probably do the same thing?
I think they would. I think they would have to.
Okay, so then that's gonna hurt Notre Dame and force them to make a decision about joining a conference if that were to happen, right? Theoretically.
Theoretically, yes.
Okay. Now, in addition to that, if the SEC goes into a silo, they're set to go to 9 conference games, but if they go in a silo, it'll be higher. It'll be like 10 or 11 conference games, correct?
Well, so I think there's different ways to go into a silo, right? I think there is the conservative way and the extreme way. And the extreme way would have the SEC deciding that they're going to have 11 conference games or 12 conference games. The more conservative, maybe they start out, maybe not changing it. I don't know, sir. I tell you what, once we get, if we get notified that they're at the Southeastern Conference is convinced that they need to break away from the NCAA, the very next question is going to be, okay, how is this thing going to play out? Is it going to be SEC only competition like the Georgia president has mentioned, or is it going to be something more conservative to begin with? I'm hoping, Tristan Five, I'm hoping when the May meetings happen in Destin, Florida, we don't just get information that they're further along in possibly breaking away, or if they decided to break away, or whatever. I'm hoping that how is it going to work? I'm hoping that some of those details come out during those meetings.
Right. Okay. Well, I'm going to say, for the sake of argument, that I think that it'll go up to at least 10 if they go into a silo. Okay? So it's more than 9 games. Now, did you mention that the SEC has gone into a renegotiation window with ESPN?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Have they gone into an early renegotiation window with ESPN?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Just that Ross Dellinger reported that it is likely that's going to happen.
Okay, so it's a likelihood. It's not
Yeah.
happened. So, Greg, if they go into a silo and they're playing more SEC games and they're renegotiating and they have all these great ratings from the last couple of years,
Mm-hmm.
they could really squeeze out of ESPN a lot of money above and beyond what they're already making, correct?
I would think so. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now here's my conspiracy. I think that the SEC is wanting to go into a silo specifically so they can expand. They can dangle that revenue out there and say, look, you guys got no chance to compete with us unless you come and be a part of the conference. And I think the Big Ten is going to go along with it because they want to put the squeeze on Notre Dame and get them to join the Big Ten. That's my conspiracy, Greg.
Well, let me say this. I think it's quite evident that the Big Ten and the SEC have been talking about how this would look like for years, because we know by the reporting of Ross Dellinger and others during the threats of the college football playoff format, like the SEC and the Big Ten threatening everybody else, if we don't get more money, if we don't have the power to form the format, we're going to break away. I mean, we already know they had meetings on this. So there has to be, what I'm trying to say is I don't think the Southeastern Conference hasn't fully decided on how this would look like. How many conference games, how many would they expand with, who they would expand with, what kind of relationship they would have with the Big Ten. Maybe none of that has been decided on. But Tristan, I think you and I would agree that they have been putting this pen to paper options. They've been doing this for at least 3 to 4 years. This is not just something that started 6 months ago. So this has been being socialized. The word that Ross Dellinger has introduced into the lexicon. This has been socialized for years in the SEC and the Big Ten. Wouldn't you agree on that?
Yeah, it absolutely has been. Yeah, I agree. You get enough people mentioning it, you get the fans to understand what the terms are and what they mean, and to think about, well, what would happen if that were to come about, you know? So yeah, the socialization's been going on, but I feel like the pressure that the SEC is trying to apply, you know, and here's the other thing too, Greg. I mean, Ryan Thomas was right. He said they need to go ahead and take action to get North Carolina, because it's probably going to slip away if they don't act soon. I think the silo might be the thing that they do. And the other thing that they need to do, and I would add this, if the political cost of taking UNC is that you take NC State too, then they might as well start reaching out to NC State and saying, hey, we'll take you guys regardless of whether or not North Carolina comes. Because I think, in my opinion, North Carolina knows that if NC State goes to the SEC, they got no choice. It doesn't matter what Virginia does. Greg, the Tar Heel fans, they would lose their frickin' minds if NC State went to the SEC and UNC went to the Big Ten. I think that's the power play that the SEC needs to go forward with. And they got to take NC State anyway. It's part of the deal if they get North Carolina.
I don't know if that's part of the deal. It could be part of the deal, but I don't know that. I don't know that for sure.
Okay, well, I guess that's a presupposition on my part,
Yeah.
but that's how I would play it.
Yeah.
I would say let's just start talking to the Wolfpack.
That's an interesting take, sir.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, listen, I've been on a long time, and I appreciate you letting me throw out all my ideas.
I love your phone calls, sir.
All right. Thanks a lot, Greg. You keep up the good work.
You got it. Call again, my man.
All righty. Bye-bye.
The purple and gold OPD done. The cannon is loaded. The powder is packed. And the match is over the fuse. Just waiting on the SEC meetings. Time is a ticking. Tick, tick, tick. OBD done. Christopher Hooter, $2 holla. $2 holla.
From
Edward, the Auburn Tiger.
Ooh, Edward, the Auburn Tiger is on the line. Can you hold on for just one moment, please?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. We got a very kind super chat from Christopher Hura. $2 holla. SEC silo to 24. 6 ACC plus 2 Big 12. Kansas and Colorado. Holy smokes. Christopher Hooter is throwing out some stuff here, ladies and gentlemen. Throwing out some stuff. Whoops, I did not mean to do that.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
Thank you, Christopher Hooter. Thank you for your $2 holla. Thank you for your generosity. I appreciate it so very much, sir. Thank you very much. Edward, the Auburn Tiger, I appreciate your phone call. Thank you for your patience. The floor is yours. War Eagle, go.
Greg, as always, another great show. Appreciate all that you do. You always make impact and always keep us informed.
I appreciate it, sir.
Hey, I just listening to your show and just over the years and up to now, you know, I still remember when Texas and Oklahoma was announced to go into the SEC, and it seemed like that propelled a chain reaction. And it seemed like it was always heading the direction it's heading. I mean, the silo, Big Ten working with the SEC. And Greg, I feel like the disagreement within the SEC is really not that much about the playoffs outside of the coaches, which I just think it has everything to do with the silo. I mean, it has come to a point now. I mean, the tone and tenor down here in the South, people are having conversations. No matter where you listen, no matter where you're going, look at the tenor and tone of Paul Feinbaum talking about the importance of this meeting. And so, I mean, I don't think it's a matter of always going silo. I think it's a matter of when, and I think the discussion now is maybe it was going to be a kind of a slow go. I think right now it's this full bore. I think that's really what's on the table. Because I just think that's just where the SEC is. The more they've investigated, the more they've talked, especially to the Big Ten. It just seems to be more pros than cons when it comes to the silo idea, whether it's governance, whether it's political cover, whether it's legal cover, however you want to denounce it. It's just too much cover there, and also too much money to be made. And it's almost like a reset. You know, once you go silo, everything resets. It causes another chain reaction. Everybody has to adjust to it. Everything has to acclimate to it. And then once it settles like you till the ground and it settles after a rain. Then you're going to probably increase talk with the Big Ten to do something on a bigger scale, just kind of seeing what things are. But it seems like it's always been heading this direction. I think the SEC, I don't think, like I said, it's not about silo. I think silo is already baked in. I think it's a matter of what the speed in which we're going to do this. And I believe every day that passes, that speed increases. And I think it's come to a head. And I don't think that Sankey's going to rise up against it. I think he's going to eventually go and flow with it. I'm sure they've gone over the numbers, what the financials look like, what the realignment is going to look like. I'm sure everything's been out on the table, and the discussions are going to be made. And I think it's going to come down to a vote this particular May that you've been discussing. And maybe you already know things that we don't know, but it seems like everything's been heading this direction. Mm-hmm. I mean, what do you think about that, and what's your feelings?
I think it was a couple of days ago. I finally caved in and said some sort of breakaway is now the chalk. What form of breakaway, I don't know, but some sort of breakaway from the NCAA where conference governance is now the chalk.
Yeah.
For it to happen.
Well, when you listen to Paul Feinbaum, you listen to Georgia's AD. It seemed like a pretty serious tone, Greg.
Yep.
And and given the landscape and how everything's shifting with the NFL negotiations, you got SEC now talking about early negotiations. I don't see a long drawn out process, Greg. I see the SEC and Big Ten having an opportunity while the situation's hot. What I mean by that is this. There's so many questions and not enough answers when it comes to governance, when it comes to the SCORE Act. I think it creates opportunities. I think it creates landscapes. I think it creates situations with the networks that you've been talking about, Amazon, Netflix, and probably others that's wanting to be involved. Everything seems to be crescendoing. Everything seems to be culminating at this point, and I feel like maybe something's happened in the last 6 months. It seems like everything's now speeding up.
Yeah,
it just seems that way.
There is a quickening to it, isn't there?
Yeah, and I think that has everything to do with everybody's beginning to see what that SCORE Act is. It's going to be a non-starter.
Yeah, it's just not going to.
And I want to say this, Greg.
Yep.
Do you? I mean, if SEC and Big Ten is going silo, I mean the 2014 playoff is a non-starter. I mean they're not going to commit to something long term when they're going to be all the eggs are being pushed toward the silo. I mean, don't you think that?
The Army of 24 is in danger. Yes, I understand that, but I don't want to focus on that danger right now. We finally got some momentum. Let it linger in the air. Again, I am the re-elected mayor of Loserville City. Somehow this ain't going to happen because I'm sitting in the chair of I am the mayor, and it just isn't going to work out for me. But right now I'm going to pretend that it is going to work out. Everything's going to come together. The SCORE Act, the Army of 24. But you are correct. And that is why I believe that Greg Sankey and the presidents, they want to make some determination, and maybe not the entire decision on whether they're going to break away or not by the end of May. But I think they want to get a good read on what they're going to do. So to know whether they should invest any more discussions on the college football playoffs or what type of discussions they should be having about the college football playoffs. Why waste all this time on 24-16 auto bids, this and that, if everything's going to dramatically change if they go to the extreme measures of this possible breakaway. So that's why I think that has speeded up. Because they want to get out in front of the college football playoff talk. I think that's a very good point.
I believe. Another thing too, Greg, that you related, and I think it came out of one of the articles that kind of raised my eyebrows. You know, when Donald Trump had the meeting with all the, I guess, key players when it comes to the SCORE Act, one of the things that got my attention was not only was Sankey there as a representative of the SEC, but the Georgia's AD was, I believe. Is that correct? Greg, are you there?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, there was another AD, and I want to say it was Georgia's. It might have been Mississippi State, but I want to say it was Georgia's AD that was also a part of those discussions.
Okay.
And man, that kind of raised my eyebrow, which tells me that, you know, maybe I'm not saying that Sankey's in danger. I'm not saying I honestly believe when Sankey says that he's not for it, I think he's really saying that he's gonna slow ball the transition. But I believe Georgia and maybe some other teams by now, they're wanting it now. I mean, they're wanting this silo now. Whatever it takes, the iron is hot. They're tired of going to the legal cases. The money's there to be made. I think ESPN is on board. I mean, what are you getting? And did you recall that? You know, that is one of the things I believe I heard.
In relation to what?
Well, like I said, the presence of an AD being there besides Sankey, I had never really heard. Normally, Sankey's a standalone, who's a sole representative, but you have another AD there.
Yeah, I think I could be reading it wrong, but I think the chatter behind the curtain. I think there is belief that the breakaway is gaining traction. It's not losing traction in the SEC. And that's why I happen to think that's why Brett McMurphy put that last part in of his article. Look, the Ivy League winning that court case in large part because it's a conference making that decision. And the circuit court judge basically saying that it's a court, the conference can make these decisions, these eligibility decisions. They can make financial decisions. I mean, the Ivy League they have decided long ago they were not going to offer athletic scholarships. That Ivy League victory a few days ago looms large in the SEC when they meet in May. That just gives the faction that wants the breakaway, it gives them more power in their argument.
Yeah, and I like that program you did, and man, that was a big deal. Mm-hmm. And I do want to say this, Greg, and I'm going to get off the phone. It pains me to say what I'm about to say, but listen, great job to the Big Ten. That's all you could say.
Yeah.
I mean, they since the NIL has come out, they have made it adjusted very, very well. They've come up with a good game plan. I think that's where the SEC is kind of lagging. It's just a transition. And, man, they've had a great year. I mean, Big Ten has had a great year, and you just got to tip your hat to them.
Yeah.
And, we will be back.
You will be
we
back.
We are hungry.
You got to get off the mat.
That's right.
All right.
But thank you very much, Greg, for all that you do.
You got it, buddy. Appreciate it. Great phone call by Edward the Auburn Tiger. We got some breaking Golden Gopher news, but first of all, Kenneth Maynor, Super Chat, Kenneth Maynor, ECU Pirate. $20 holler from the Pirate. Thank you, Kenneth Maynor. Thank you for your generosity. North Carolina State to the Southeastern Conference will happen. The Board of Governors will rubber stamp it. Woo. The SEC presidents will applaud. Woo. SEC will own the 7th largest state with the 2 massive public schools. Football ratings will rise with an SEC schedule. My goodness. My goodness, Kenneth Maynor has spoken. East Carolina Pirate. All right. Look, I will come out with my predictions on April 9th and on Thursday, just like I did last April 9th. And, I might, North Carolina State might be in those predictions. Maybe not. We'll see. And of course, on any day, people can put down their predictions on what they think is going to happen in the chat room, but especially on April 9th. April 9th is going to be a Prediction Thursday show. Not a report. I don't think anything is imminent. Nothing is finalized. You guys know I do not have a hot bubble of action that I know is happening right now. If I did, I would let you know as much as I could on that. But I don't think we're in that situation yet. I don't believe we are. A lot of positioning going on. A lot of NDAs are flying around. That is for sure. Thank you so much, Kenneth Maynor. I think some people agree with you, especially Wolfpack people. Thank you, Kenneth Maynor. We've got the Evil Badger. We've got the super chat from the Evil Badger.
From
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, can you hold on for just a few minutes?
You get your breaking news out of the way.
I got to get to my Golden Gopher breaking news. I got to get to my Golden Gopher breaking news. Let's go. Evil Badger, the Big 10, the 24, Miami, Duke, Virginia, Kansas, North Carolina, and Georgia Tech, all AAU universities. The Evil Badger has spoken. Thank you for the $2 holler, Evil Badger. Thank you so very much, and thank you for getting us that good news. Christopher Hooter, we got another super chat. Christopher Hooter. Christopher Hooter said earlier, SEC going to 24, 6 ACC schools, 2 Big 12 schools. He mentioned the Big 12 schools, and now in this super chat, he's mentioning the ACC schools. North Carolina, again, another North Carolina state. Clemson, Florida State, Virginia Tech, Virginia, or Duke. Christopher Hooter, $2 holler. Thank you so very much. And we got the Mr. Purple and Gold, the legendary Purple and Gold, OBD Don. $10 holler. OBD Don. North Carolina is in the catbird seat now. Just like USC was back when they decided to jettison the Pac-12. But boy, UNC and the ACC are so much land of the misfit toys right now. Geesh, just nutty. Absolutely. I mean, we talk about the issues that UCLA had. The jettison from California, Berkeley, because they share the same board, right? North Carolina's issues are even probably thicker than that. Virginia's issues could be close as difficult like North Carolina when it comes to the exit hatch, when it comes to jettisoning yourself. And then you've got factions that want the ACC to remain. There's a lot there. Yeah, it's a political, cultural quagmire. The ACC quagmire. You've got the old guard, you got the new guard, you got the ACC guard, you got the SEC guard, you got a sliver of the Big Ten guard, all within Chapel Hill, Charlottesville, even in Tallahassee. It's all over the place. But thank you, OPD Don. Thank you for your generosity. I very much appreciate it, sir. You have been so very kind to this program, to this channel. Thank you. Love the way you write. Love your creativity. Thank you so very much, sir. Appreciate it. We've got some big news here. We've got some big news. Buckle up. Brace for impact. Golden Gophers. Buckle up. Brace for impact, baby. Breaking news. 4-star tight end Drake Mickelson, the beast from South Dakota, 6'5", and he runs like the wind, has committed to our beloved Minnesota Golden Gophers. Let's go. Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours. Thanks for your patience.
Now, who was the person that called a few days ago that said that someone was bumbling something?
Well, I know it wasn't you.
It was me, Greg. I talked about how, on the North Carolina situation. Remember I talked about that? How the SEC better pull the trigger soon?
Yes.
So, that's that. But ultimately, it's great that people like to speculate and put all this together. But I think the key thing to remember is the networks aren't going to pay any more than what they're paying now. And the other thing to remember is just the simple reality that I think the networks are going to try to maintain their market share, and everything's going to basically center on. This is really nothing more than all this conference realignment and everything else is nothing more than a proxy war between ESPN and Fox, and having market share and controlling that. And they're going to do their best to make sure there's only so much money streaming can bring in, Greg. And Fox is not going to let Ohio State and Michigan ever be streamed. Okay, that's never happening. So there's only so much value that a streamer can get from a game. And to assume that they're going to overpay, that may seem what's vogue today, but, what if market indications seem to indicate that we're probably headed towards a recession. And the question is, at what point do Netflix or Amazon and others become willing to overpay for something? And especially when you're in Amazon and you're dealing on thin margins, what point do you overpay for something when the economy slows? So, I think that ultimately is going to be what drives everything. And, it's cute that people like to think different things about relationships and politics and research in AAU, and that's all nice and dandy, but it really comes down to is to never forget who writes the check. And that ultimately is what will be that drives a lot of this. It's going to be what ESPN wants for now. That may not look. It's going to come down to who writes the check. That's what funds this, and they all have budgets they need to meet, Greg. You have the impending student crisis. You have, you're going to have, huge budget deficit shortfalls in a lot of these universities. They need to. A lot of them got to service massive debt on the athletic end, too, for facilities. So at the end of the day, they're going to usually fall in line with whoever is writing the check.
Yes, but SEC is greatly undervalued right now. And,
they are. But
there are people that want to come into the college sports space. And I think ESPN is going to try to get out in front of that, and I think they're going to make a huge look. Ryan Thomas, you might be correct. We might go in a recession worldwide. All that is true, but people said that the same thing before the SEC signed their massive Tier 1 deal with ESPN and ABC that replaced CBS. It was a big jump in money, and I think. I would put my money on the table that the SEC is going to have their big jump in money in value once again.
That's not debatable, but you also have to realize too that ESPN is not going to overpay for certain properties to come into the SEC.
But others. I don't think if the SEC is going to expand, I don't think it's just going to be the ESPN Family Network and ABC
Yeah, but
all owned by Disney.
ESPN is going to control where the rights go and who gets picked first, and that's going to drive how much money that a streamer and others are going to be able to pay.
Okay, but CBS and NBC paid an extraordinary amount of money to get Big Ten content when Fox still controls most of the first picks, and yet CBS and NBC came on big, and Amazon wanted to go even bigger than those two, but Big Ten said no at the time. I happen to think that's what's going to happen with the SEC. I think it's already. I think that's why ESPN is going to move the exclusive window up, get a deal done now or in a couple of years from now, and I just happen to think the SEC is sitting on a gold mine.
I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing that the SEC is sitting on a gold mine, but you have to understand everything's going to be dictated on ESPN's terms. That doesn't mean that. I mean that's the thing that you have to realize. ESPN's writing the check. They'll give the gold mine, but they're not giving it out for nothing. And they still have an exclusive control over all of the FCC's rights. So, I mean, ESPN, sure, they'll let Amazon and others into the game, but it's going to be on ESPN's terms. And that's ultimately what ESPN, this whole thing, look what's happening with the playoffs here. You know how many networks that would love to get in on the playoffs? Why did ESPN do an extension on the playoffs? It's because it just preserves their monopoly for another period of time. I mean, ultimately, that's what's going on here. ESPN loves to lock people up for long term and to be able to control and move the chessboard. That's their MO. So I mean, I would just be mindful of this because that's what's kind of probably end up dictating who goes where and what happens and who survives. I'm not sure that ESPN is going to do things that necessarily devalue other inventory pools. You know, you may be able to increase the value by 1%, you know, by on one end of the scale, but if you end up devaluing something else and other properties on the other end of the scale, it's not always a net positive. So, I mean, I think that's the big thing that people realize. Yeah, I mean, ESPN does have deals with the American, the Big 12, and the ACC, and if the ACC is still around, they're not going to necessarily torpedo the value of their other assets. So, I mean, I think if what happens, my guess is ESPN's probably going to pool like-valued schools in the same conference and high-valued schools in another conference, and that's likely how they're going to proceed. And they're going to probably put the more moderately valued schools will probably be those that will be, you know, pitching on the Friday and, you know, Thursday night games or whatever. Probably Friday night because I don't think ESPN wants to mess around with Thursday night football, but I think that's probably what you're going to see happening. So, I mean, I'm just offer a word of caution to everybody that, you know, they're the ones that run the numbers and know everything and know where things are going. And I think that they're going to have a lot of say. They're going to have a lot of say in what happens with Notre Dame. You know, they're going to have a lot of say because right now, think about this end of the equation. Right now, because of the SEC, because of the ACC deal with Notre Dame, and because of Notre Dame playing other schools that also have TV contracts with ESPN, you know, all those Notre Dame road games are basically 5 ESPN games. Like I said, ESPN isn't letting that value just walk away. So, I mean, you know, keep in mind that this is going to be on their terms. Nothing's going to be unilateral and nothing's going to be simple. And, you know, and then you get the whole aspect of what goes on if we have a chalk. If we go, I think governance is probably likely to happen. but boy, silos might have some political backlash. So, I think ultimately at the end of the day, we all like it, but, screwing one part to enhance the other isn't always the best decision. Can be, result in less money. So, I don't think ESPN's that dumb. I don't think ESPN's dumb, and there's a reason why they are where they're at, and I just keep an eye on that. But I mean, I don't think anything's a done deal right now. I think a lot needs to be figured out, and I also think at the end of the day, it's going to be, the advertisers and the ones that write the checks that have an influence on what the decisions are. But that's all I have, Greg.
All right,
Just
my
keeping
man.
it real with everyone.
Beautiful.
All right, bye.
Beautiful call, Ryan Thomas. Thank you very much, sir. BYU Cougar, Ryan Thomas. Elliot Howard, Kevin Warren got the Big Ten, Oregon, USC, Washington, UCLA. That was brilliant. Petiti can't just add any old scrub. Kevin Warren did not get Washington and Oregon. That was under Tony Petiti. In fact, and we reported it in real time here at Peek Around the Corner. We were talking about it every day. I said that the Big Ten was not going to be able to get Oregon and Washington unless Kevin Warren left office first. And then the Big 12 was going to have to be successful in poaching, getting Colorado. All that happened. And then the Big Ten was going to be able to get Oregon and Washington. The Fox wasn't going to be doing any more deals with Kevin Warren. Kevin Warren went out over his skis. The president, it was... So, just want to make sure that we got the history correct here. Thank you for your comment, Elliot Howard, but Kevin Warren did not get the Big Ten, Oregon, and Washington. Quite the opposite. They were not gettable at that time if he would have stayed in office. That's why I kept saying Oregon and Washington 5 months from now or 5 years from now, they're going to be added on to the Big Ten. And when Kevin Warren left, we had a big live show. When Kevin Warren announced that he was leaving, I was like, oh boy, here we go. All right, I do want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to thank especially those with who gave generous gifts, donations to this program to help us keep the lights on and grow the channel. Evil Badger, Ricky Tungate, MBM, Gold Black 45, Stevens, Christopher Hooter, Kenneth Maynor, OPD Dunn. I appreciate all you guys. And then Christopher Hooter, silo decision has already been made. Buckle up. I wonder about that. I think it's somewhat the chalk now, but I wonder about that. Thank you for the $2 holler, Christopher Hooter. Thank you so much again for your generosity. I appreciate it. I want to thank the incredible phone calls. A whole lot of people joined us today. Over 150 was the number. I want to thank you all. Monday, April 6th is going to be a very busy week. Brett McMurphy, that last statement in that article, I think speaks. I think North Carolina, what happened with the coaching search for the basketball program speaks. I think a lot of people are talking without moving their lips. I think there's a lot of positioning going on. It's going to be very dramatic April. And then again, I have been told within the last, I would say, last 13 hours, I was told that the Nebraska 18 decision, while nobody knows when that could come down, might not necessarily happen in the month of April. It could very well sneak in the first couple of weeks in May. But I don't know. I don't know when it's coming down. I was told 2 days ago that it was going to be a very busy week this week. So, buckle up, brace for impact. We'll see what's coming down. Again, if you're new to the program or if you haven't done it yet, please subscribe. Get yourself notified. Ring the notification bell. Smash the like button. Share the video. I appreciate all of you. Until next time, which is tomorrow. Until next time, from all of us at PATC, to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. And as always, God, family, Golden Gophers.